So what size graphic do I need for my tumbler or my glass can or whatever I'm making here? I get that question a lot. How big should I make my graphic? How big should, or the picture or whatever you're going to put on it? That depends, of course, and it depends on what size thing you're sublimating onto. And this is pertaining to sublimation, not HTV. So, well, of course, I guess that would apply with HTV too. Anyway, this is about sublimation, and no, I'm not going to actually sublimate anything here. I'm just going to go over the details on getting your graphic set up so that you end up with a perfect product here, like this one here that's already been done. So the first thing you're going to need to do, of course, after you get your supplies, is get you one of these things. That's for measuring around your waist or whatever, but every time I do that it seems to lie. Anyway, on one side is inches, the other side's millimeters, so if you're working SAE, you can use the inches. If you're doing M&Ms, metric, then use the other side. So depends how you have your software set up. So first thing you need to do, I'm going to start off with this little kitty tumbler here, and normally I would do it without the lid, but you put your tape at the very top there and stretch it to the bottom and wrap it around just a little bit. So here we would be 5 3/8 inches, or if you're doing M&Ms, it would be 13.5 M&Ms across, down. Write that down. That's going to be your dimension this direction. Then you want to take it and wrap it around the tumbler. So here, from the end to where it meets, would be 8 5/8. I have a cold, so I'm a little hoarse today. So 8 5/8. So make your graphic 8 3/4, and I'll show you why here in a little bit. So that would be for a kitty tumbler. Now, the standard 20-ounce skinny tumbler, they're all the same size, sort of. Again, you want to measure your length from the very tip to the bottom. Let it wrap over because you want your color to go around that little lip at the bottom there. So you want it to be 8 1/4. Diameter, I'm working in inches here. That's what, since I'm US based and people seem to freak out when I use millimeters. You measure around this direction, and that's 9 1/4, but make it 9 3/8. And I'll show you why again in a little bit. Glass can. Now this has a taper on it. I'll take the lid off of this. Obviously you can't sublimate up here. That'd be really hard to get into that little groove. So you'd want to set your graphic to where that taper starts, down this way, and maybe wrap around the bottom a little bit, get that color around. It's 4 1/4. And your diameter is 8 7/8, but make your graphic 9. Now, I'll show you why you want that graphic to be a little bit longer that direction. Get a print out here, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. The graphic has been printed for one of these 20-ounce skinny tumblers here. And it is 9 1/2 by 8 1/4. What you want to do before you put your graphic onto your tumbler is take one edge and cut just a little sliver of color off of it. And I highly recommend using a rotary cutter like this and not a Cricut trimmer or something like this. These do work nice, but they can very easily spoil your graphic on your sublimation paper. It could tear the graphic. So you would take and cut off just a little sliver of color and make it straight. So you can see here, I cut off just a little sliver of that black. I'll show you why I did that. So I'm going to take my tumbler here. In fact, I'll actually prep this one. So So as I take my tumbler and lay it down, I'll bring this edge up, and then this side, I want to make sure that the color overlaps like this. Otherwise you'll end up with a white streak. Of course, then you'll want to get everything squared up. And you want to make sure you have a little bit of color left at the top there, so you don't end up with a white band around the top. Then I like to take these and turn them very, very tightly in my hand, get that as tight as possible on there. Then I'll heat tape this. Even if you're going to use heat shrink stuff and do this in the oven, you still need to do this taping. Then once you have that tape there tight, you want to go all the way down the seam. Yes, you could use one long piece, but I tend to miss when I do that. Now when you get to the bottom, right here, you want that color to wrap around that little bevel at the bottom. So the way you do that is you fold your paper over, and you're going to get a few wrinkles in it. There's no way around that. Now you're going to want to tape all the way around the bottom. I know some people don't do this, and if I'm at a craft show or something, I can always spot the people that don't take this extra step, because you'll see a white band around the bottom. This will prevent that. Seems like some people just don't want to take the time to do this. So when you're done, the bottom should look like this. Well, now I guess that I got this one prepped, I'll press it and I'll show you how it turns out. The same principle also applies to coffee mugs if you're sublimating on them. So here's a coffee mug, so you're going to have to figure out what size your graphic needs to be. There again, it's just a matter of using this simple tape. So your maximum height to be 4. Of course, you can't wrap all the way around this, so you're going to have to decide where you want to start and stop. But to size my graphic, I measure from the handle to the handle, and here is 9 3/4. So then I can lay out my square and figure out how to space my graphic so that it comes out the same on both sides. You're printing on both sides. Don't try to go all the way up to the handle here, because your mug press is not going to get enough heat right up here close to the handle, and you'll have a faded graphic. So there's something else to keep in mind. Stay at least I would say 3/4 of an inch away from the handle on each side. So there's a little hint about the mugs. Okay, this should be cool enough to handle. It is now. So I can unwrap this. And sometimes they'll just come right off, and then sometimes they do this. Oh, there's our finished mug. So as you can see here, I've got complete color around the top. There's no white band. And the color wraps around the base all the way around. Obviously it's white at the bottom. There's a bottom view of it. But if you don't go to that extra step and pull your graphic around that little curve down there, when this sits down, you'll be able to see that white band all the way around. Now this particular one is what they almost call seamless, because unless you know where to look, you can't see that seam there. Other ones are not seamless, and you'll see a seam because the pattern won't match as it comes together. This happened to be a design where it does come together and you can't tell where it is. So there's the hows and whys of how to size your graphic for whatever your project is, whether it be a mug or a toddler tumbler or 20-ounce tumbler with course, if you got the 30 or the 35, you better have a mug press that'll fit it, unless you're doing it in the oven. But it's the same principle applies to any circular object like this. You need to take your measurements. What software do I use to lay out my graphics? I use Inkscape. It's free download, inkscape.com, and I can size my graphic up in there and fit it to what I need it to be. So there's just a little kind of quick one. I hadn't intended on actually pressing this, but since I already wrapped it, I thought I'd just throw it in the press. And because we just got done running a batch of some other ones, which made me think about doing this. So if you got anything out of this, appreciate getting a thumbs up. Always helps the channel. I'm Roger in the loft above the shop. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.